Yo, what's up everybody? It's Murk, and today I've got something that I'm very excited to show you all. Of course you can tell what it is from the title of this video, but today we have the NPL Season 7 draft analysis for the San Francisco Regigiants. So once again, Joel Tabolian won't let me have Burger Kingler in the NPL, but I understand why, but it'd still be pretty fire. But anyways, Season 7, I'm really excited. It's going to be much more competitive this season even than it was last season, which was pretty nuts. Definitely the most competitive league I've been in, so this is a step up from that. And the reason why that is not only have we've gotten well, it's because of the relegation system with majors and minors this season and the addition of old and new coaches. The roster is just weeding out all of the people at the bottom of the division, so Rizzy Powell's still staying in majors somehow, but we lost some of the guys that are struggling at the bottom of the standings and replaced them with guys like Monatui, who's an absolute savage beast, and Rob Pokey TC Gamer, who's like king of the ladder, and he's finally getting into his draft league groove. So that's definitely something to look forward to, and I definitely feel like I'm in for a little bit of a renaissance season, a little rebirth from what went down last season. So you know how last season went. It started off really strong. We were 5-2 or something, 4-2, 5 yeah, we're 5-2 going into the latter half of the season, and then shit went south in a hurry. I got 6-0 by Maddie, and then it was a combination of me building on tilt, playing on serious tilt, and just getting hacks to shit when I wasn't playing bad. And it just spiraled out of control, and last week I never showed it, but it was just a meme match, and I lost that, and I was a little upset about that. It was just an upsetting season for me. I was in a bad mood for a lot of it because it wasn't going how I envisioned it to, and I'm definitely looking to turn that around. And I really think that I'm finally getting into my Sun and Moon groove. I understand the meta a whole lot more. I probably won't click rest on it against a Tapu Fini this season, no promises, but I'll do my best. I'm a lot more cognizant of what things are doing and how to deal with things, and also I kind of realized what went wrong with my draft last season. So last season we had a really cool team. Jirachi, Megaladios, Terrakion, those kind of mons were all really good, and my team had a lot of strong Pokemon on it. But the thing was, I tried Double Wish Pass, which in itself is very good. However, I really didn't have anything that was a good recipient of Double Wish. Like, all of my offense was extremely frail. I had Terrakion, the only Crocodile, which can be bulky, but I had a hard time passing wishes into it, and it was also my rocker like every single week the entire season pretty much, which took away from its offensive capabilities, even though that thing's really good. I got Keldeo at the end, I got Greninja, Gengar, all these things that just are not bulky. Like, if I try and wish pass into them, they're losing more HP than they're gaining back, unless it's into a weak hit like a Scald from a bulky water or whatever. So it just didn't work out. Like, if I was ever going to do Double Wish again, I'd draft some really fat shit like, I don't know, Zygarde, Mega Blastoise, some stuff that I was playing around with in my when I played for Jim as a replacement in the PPL D2. So it's pretty fun, and overall, since the first 12 games of my draft league career in Gen 7, I've played a lot more. Like, I've played over 50 games in Gen 7 draft now, so that's I think over 50 games, which is pretty insane. So I definitely I'm on my groove. I've been really hot lately, going into playoffs in a few leagues and that sort of thing. I've just been doing well, so I'm pretty confident that I can carry that on. And I also have more time since it's summer. I don't have school, I don't have sports to deal with, so I can dedicate more time to my builds and perfecting my team so that I can win in this league and possibly even win the league itself, because I feel like I'm up there right now, and as long as I do my thing and I build well and don't get lucked, then we should be in a good spot. And one thing that I did notice from last season that really hurt me was that I was getting lucked and I had no way to bail myself out. The main thing was that I really didn't have priority on my team. I had like Water Shuriken, Greninja, and then the rest was like really weak non-stab priority that I was never really going to use, like Quick Attack Terrakion and like Aqua Jet Keldeo and that sort of shit that like you're never gonna bring. Or I brought Quick Attack Tarak maybe once, and it's just like they're not good sets. So definitely going into this season, I wanted to get more priority. I wanted to get a bulkier team for sure, and I wanted to get something that just kind of fit into my groove a little more, because last season was cool, but it was more like a good stuffs team, and it didn't really fit as like, it wasn't a synergetic squad. Like, I had really strong Pokemon. Mega Latios was the MVP of the league, but everything didn't gel right. So going into that, I definitely want to have a much stronger synergy-based team. I want to have more hazard options, since I do like laying up hazards, and I don't want to rely on one mon like a Crocodile to lay up rocks every week, because that's wasting its potential. And overall, I just wanted to have a team that I was going to enjoy building with. I definitely felt like I got into a rut with my last team, so I definitely think the team I drafted is going to be fun, and I've been jerking you guys off for 6 minutes now, so let's go ahead and start talking about the draft. And in going into this draft, I have the 3rd pick, which is definitely a step up from like the 10th pick or whatever I had last season, so I can definitely get something that I really want. And there was a few things popping around, like Mega Kang. So ahead of me were Razor and Shoddy, and I already knew that they were going to take Mega Latios and Mega Kangaskhan. Like, I knew that from the beginning. I wasn't really that interested in Mega Kang, to be honest. Some of the very interesting round 1 things that I could have taken were like Mega Lopunny, Hoopa Unbound, like a Victini or Manaphy, of course. We're allowing Mega Mawile, which I decided pretty early on that I actually did not want, even though I could have drafted it given what Shoddy and Razor were going to take, but I just didn't think, I didn't want it. Kyurem Black, I could have gone Jirachi again, which I definitely considered heavily. And also, it's worth noting that this is a points draft, not a free draft, so I'm really happy about that, because I really like points drafts, since I strive when I can use some of the more creative mons, some of the lower tiered things, and get a more synergetic team. Think about using like Sneasel and Gastrodon and a Scavalier to win me a championship in the GPC, that sort of thing. So when I was thinking about what I wanted, I decided that there's just one mon that historically does extremely well in League, and it's a mon that I used once before a very long time ago that I extremely enjoyed, and it's something that I definitely wanted to go back to my roots a little with this draft a little bit, use some of the mons I liked, use some mons that I wasn't too familiar with, and just have a mon that was really, really good. And so I'm going back all the way to my very first season in Draft League format, my MVP of that, and that is Mega Gardevoir. Now, I don't have nicknames yet, so I'll just cook those up when I want to, but I took Mega Gardevoir round 1. Now, there was a ton of things I could have taken. Definitely could have gone Mega Lop, could have gone Rachi, Kyurem Black, Mega Mawile, but Mega Guard is a really, really nice mon, and there's absolutely no chance in hell that in the NPL that it will come back to me round 2, because everyone in this league loves this mon. Gypsy is an absolute beast with it, Maddie uses it well, and like everyone likes Mega Gardevoir, so I definitely wanted to pick it up because this thing is so good. Obviously, you know what Mega Guard does, and it yells, and it hits that yeet all day, but we know that I know that Pixelate got the nerf in Gen 6, so it goes from having a 1.3 boost to its normal type moves to become a fairy to 1.2, but it's really not that big of a difference. It's still so strong with 165 base special attack. It's stronger than most mons without any boost or without any stat or EV investment in special attack initially, and so if you invest it further, it hits like an absolute beast. And Mega Gardevoir is just so good at so many different things. Obviously, it's a very strong attacker, but it has pretty solid bulk. Its HP and defense aren't very good with 68 and 65, but its SPDEF is out of this world at 135. And with base 100 speed, it's really solid. And the big thing about Mega Gardevoir that I think got it a little better in Gen 7, despite its power nerf, is that it gets the immediate speed now. That's a really big thing. That's why mons like Mega Gallade, Mega Houndoom, and Mega Lopunny are so much better in this gen than they were before, because they get their speed immediately, which is really nice, so you never have to run like Protect Gardevoir to guarantee your Mega. The Wish Protect Guard is definitely a thing that you'll be seeing this season for sure, because Fat Guard is best guard, am I right? But Mega Guard's just an absolute beast. It has so many good moves, and the power difference isn't really that big. Like, before in Gen 6, Hyper Voice essentially was 117 base power, and it's 108 base power now, so that's stronger than a stab return, which is really, really good. And coming off 165 special attack, that is strong. It's got Psychic Fairy is an amazing typing, so I still have my nice stab Psychic as well, which absolutely nukes things. Psyshock's such a good secondary move for this thing, because things that were wanting coming on this are really fat Spadef mons and like Assault Vest mons, and Psyshock can just blow those things back since it's hitting their physical defense. And Mega Gardevoir has a humongous bag of tricks. Like, this thing has so many good supportive moves. It's so much more than just an offensive nuke. It's a defensive pivot. It can be a straight up defensive mon, it can be a win condition, it can be full support, it can do so many things, and it's really, really fun. So definitely glad to have this thing back on the roster. It's been a very long time, and I thought it'd be a pretty fun mon to draft around this season. So going into round 2, there was really just one thing I wanted, and that was Zapdos. Now, Zapdos is something that's pretty traditionally paired with Gardevoir. It's super duper good because it resists Steel, which is like the biggest issue for Mega Guard. It doesn't really care about stuff like ground, since EQ is a pretty good move to hit a Gardevoir with, and overall these two mons just synergize pretty well. So I did end up grabbing Zapdos round 2. Nice classic Lizard Core right there with the Mega Guard Zapdos, and like obviously Gypsy drafted this last season, but I'm not trying to copy anyone. I'm just going with what I think is going to be the best draft. So Zapdos is another mon that is very, very good. It gives me another mon at base 100, which base 100 speed, which you'll see as a trend going throughout this draft. But Zapdos is a great mon for a lot of reasons. It's super versatile. I really hadn't used it much before Gen 7, but I've had it in the ICBA and I really enjoy using it. And paired with Mega Gardevoir, there's really not much of a better pair with it. It's a good defensive mon, it's a good offensive mon. It gives me defog, which I think I might actually be valuing hazard removal more, and you'll probably see why throughout this draft. But I've really started to notice that I really don't want to take that 12% chip if I'm going to be switching in my Gardevoir and that sort of thing. And Zapdos adds just so many aspects to my team. It's a baton passer, it defogs, it's offensive, has very high base 125 special attack. It has nice stalling capabilities if I'm running fat. It just does a lot of things. It's a really good mon. You kind of know what Zapdos does, and it does everything really well. Like, you could go with a Thundy and be much more offensive, but Zapdos is very balanced out of the flying electric types. It's by far the most versatile electric type in Draft League format, aside from, well, yeah, it's definitely the most versatile. It's got nice move selection. It's got good stats, so it can really do a whole lot, which helps it out. And it's just a great supporter for Mega Guard, and I thought it'd just be an overall good support for my entire team, and it was definitely part of the core that I wanted to build around. And these were two of the three mons that I wanted to build my draft around. Three things that I could pretty much rely on every single week to get the job done if I needed, and if they sat on the bench, I have enough supporting cast to help them out. So for my round 3, I was going to pretty much my all-time favorite Draft League Pokemon at this point, something that's an absolute beast, complete GOAT, one of the best offensive mons I've used, and it's a little questionable taking it in round 3, but I decided that this mon was absolutely irreplaceable. There is not one other Pokemon in the entire Draft League format that does this thing's job, and even though it is much cheaper than some of the other things going around, it is so much more worth the price it is. So I might as well say we got 120 points. I spent 17 on Mega Gardevoir, 15 on Zapdos. I really wasn't too concerned about my points early on. Like, I had a draft plan, but I was only going to go by it loosely because I understand that snipes can happen. But basically, this mon fits so perfectly with the first two, and I just could not pass it up. So that is none other than my GPC Season 5 MVP, Lucario. Now, Lucario, you guys know how much I love this thing, and you should know how good this thing is. So even if it's a little early for round 3, if I did not get Lucario right now, my plan would have been fucked, because my draft plan was Mega Guard, Zapdos, Lucario. That's the main core I want to use, because all three of these mons are absolutely obscenely good. Now, like I said, you guys know I love Lucario. This mon is unbelievably good. It is so good at everything it does. It's the one of the best offensive mons in the entire Draft League format, in my opinion, because it has priority on priority on priority. It has 3 usable priorities. It has 2 forms of incredible setup, Nasty Plot and Sword Stance. It has 110 attack and 115 special attack with a great move pool for each. This thing is it's just such a good offensive mon. Like, for 12 points, it is so incredibly worth it. Its typing pairs up really well with Zapdos and Gardevoir. It gives me another steel resist for guard. It gives me a poison immunity for Mega Guards, so I've covered both of Guard's weaknesses, aside from, well, there's Ghost, but Ghost doesn't exist. But it covers those very well, and so I covered. And also, what am I trying to say? Ground and Fighting are covered by Zapdos. Fighting is covered by Mega Guard. And these 3 I just felt had incredible synergy. So this thing is just a great offensive powerhouse. It's a cleaner. It's something that can help me break steals for Guard as well as Zapdos. And it's just a mon that I can rely on to win me games, and it's another mon that can save me games, because Extreme Speed or Bullet Punch or Vacuum Wave late game after I get some hacks can bail me out, and that's something that I really need that I did not have last season. So Lucario is a staple. I love this thing, and it's so good, and it's definitely going to be a big player this season, I can imagine. Now, I will mention our Z moves. For this season, we get 1 Z move captain, kind of similar to the GBA, and we get every Z move aside from like the Omni boosting, so we're not going like Z conversion, Porygon Z, or anything like that. And Lucario is not my Z move user, and you'll see who is pretty soon after, but Lucario just added so much for me on this team. So even if it was a little early for round 3, the only feasible replacement potentially to a Lucario is Infernape, because they're both strong fighting types with mixed priority. However, Infernape went round 1, so there was no coming back from that. So I needed to get Lucario now. If I didn't get it, I was pretty screwed. So I'm totally content spending my round 3 pick on Lucario. It's definitely going to be a good mon for me this season. And going into round 4 was when the big snipe happened. So round 4, I really wanted to get my ground type, and my power rankings for ground types coming into this was, first and foremost, I wanted Nidoqueen. That got sniped. Then my second choice, and one that I possibly wanted more than Nidoqueen, was Gliscor, and I really thought that was going to be able to come to me, but fuck off, Mono, you sniped that from me too. So like, Trev and Mono, fuck off, but yeah, both those things got sniped. Crocodile got taken earlier by Maddie, and I didn't really want Nidoking, but it got taken too, so all the good ground types suddenly were gone. I was like, shit, I had like no coming back from that. I didn't like any of the other ground types that are left available. There was like Hippowdon and Landorus Incarnate without Sheer Force, and I was like, nah, I need something fat for my ground type. And it threw me for a loop. I definitely had to reconsider my plan a lot after those things got sniped. I really wanted Nidoqueen or Gliscor because they're so good for the synergy in my team, so I had to reconsider some things. I knew that I needed rockers. I needed quite a few things, and I also saw that grass types started to go, and I decided that with my next pick that I was gonna have to double up on some weaknesses, but who doesn't? And I decided that for my 4th round pick, I was going to take Celebi. Now, Celebi is a really interesting one, not one that I've used before, and I'm a little skeptical about it. It adds some common weaknesses to my team now. I've got 2 psychic types, but it's like a meme. I don't know if it's a meme or just a way of life to have multiple psychic types on your team, but Celebi's really nice for the supportive roles that it gives for my team. Obviously, it's a Pixie, so it has 100s all around, and it gives me a lot of things. It gives me a grass type that gets Stealth Rocks, though, which is super duper important since nothing else really does that off the top of my mind. I definitely wanted to start adding more Stealth Rockers to my team, and this thing just offered some pretty decent synergy to the team. Gives me another ground and fighting resist for Lucario. Obviously, it's weak to the same stuff that Gardevoir is weak in Poison and Ghost, but it's just kind of a support mon, so it kind of throws my synergy out of whack, makes my team a little more ice weak, but I definitely was planning on patching up some weaknesses further down the line. And the weakness to bug is pretty mitigated by the fact that there's like 2 bugs in the format, and I've got Zapdos and Lucario which resist that, so it's a little iffy pick. But I like Celebi's, I like the things it can do, and after getting sniped, my plan was a little out of whack, and this thing offered me a whole lot of things: Healing Wish, Baton Pass, Trick Room, U-Turn, of course, like a whole lot of things. It can be an offensive mon since it's base 100s all around, and it can just be a plug and play, which is really, really nice for me, and it has some cool tricks up its sleeve. So I'm definitely looking forward to using this thing. A little worried for 4 times weakness exploitation, but we'll kind of see how it goes throughout the season and in my building. So we got Celebi coming back from the back of the draft, so it went so that Shoddy and Razor were going to pick 2 mons each, and then it was going to come back to me. And I decided that I was going to further continue my weaknesses to a few things and pick up Dragonite. Now, Dragonite's my Z user, and Dragonite is a very, very interesting mon. It's definitely gotten extremely good with Z moves, and that's why I made it my Z user, because now it has a flying stab, which is really cool, and it just has one guaranteed move that is pretty much going to kill something. And Dragonite is a really interesting mon, so I'm a little worried about my rock weakness at this point, but I do have Zapdos, which is a very reliable defogger, and we're gonna get some more removal onward. And yeah, this continues to compound my ice weakness, but I really wasn't worried with the plan that I had laid out, and Dragonite just offered me a really good offensive mon, and a mon that's very versatile, which goes much farther than its Dragon Dance and its Choice Banded sets. So what else is there to say? It gives me a second mon with really, really good priority. It has extreme speed, which is super nice, along with Lucario, so I have double E speed. I considered going for a mon like Entei so I could get the triple E speed, but that got taken later on, so I did not get that, which I wasn't really aiming for it. But this thing has a lot of really cool options. Like I said, definitely more than just an offensive powerhouse. It has a good stat distribution. It can be a mixed mon. It can be a defensive mon. Its defenses are really, really good. Obviously, I'm going to get HP iced, but I definitely have plans in the back to how I can mitigate that. So Dragonite just offers a strong offensive win condition along with Lucario or a Wall Breaker, and a thing that's luring out the mons that Gardevoir can't really beat, and just a mon that people really, really have to prep for, since it's pretty easy to get swept by D-Knight if you don't have the correct mons and you don't have the correct sets for it. So I'm definitely looking forward to use this thing. Definitely have a lot of have a few mons on my team now that I have not used before. Like, I've used Dragonite in a speed draft, and that's about it, and Celebi I really haven't used before, and the rest I have used pretty extensively. But these 2 are pretty cool mons, Celebi and Dragonite. Definitely looking forward to using them. I think they'll help out the squad. The synergy's a little whack right now. It's not pretty, but we're looking at big picture, not just we're not power ranking our team after 5 picks. So going into round 6, I decided that I really had all the power I needed, and I want to start adding utilities, roles, and type coverages and defensive backbone to the team. So going into this, I knew I wanted a poison type, and I really wanted a grounded poison type, one preferably with toxic spikes. Not getting Nidoqueen earlier kind of ruined that plan, but I definitely wanted toxic spikes for this team since it's such a good tool to have on hand. And I also wanted to cover some other rounds. I definitely want a poison type, so I was looking at Muck, Alolan, Drapion, like possibly Garbodor or Weezing, but the one I ended up getting was Drapion, and I sniped Shoddy with this, so sorry bud, but Drapion's a really cool mon, and it offers a whole lot for this team because it gives me that grounded poison type, it gives me that dark type so I can pursuit trap things so that like mons can't just run like mono psychic calm mind sets and completely screw me over. And it's a mon that just, it does a whole lot. It has a lot of roll compression. Having the ability to have a poison type that isn't weak to psychic is wonderful. It checks a whole lot of mons that has good speed stat, it's good offensively, it's good defensively. It has some cool abilities including Sniper, which I may or may not run versus Shoddy because memes, but It has a really, really wide move pool, which really accents the fact that it has strong setup like Swords Dance and Agility, which I can abuse, and of course Acupressure, the GOAT move. But the main things I wanted this for were like Taunt, Knockoff, Toxic Spikes, and Pursuit. Those were the big things I really, really wanted on my team that I did not have thus far. And Drapion just added all of those into one roll, which is really, really nice. I'm not worried about ground types at all with this team since I've got 3 really good resist / immunities, and it just added some really nice compression to the team, and it's a good role player mon. Probably not going to be the MVP, but you never know. So let's go ahead and hop into what we got for our round 7. So we're at the latter half of the draft now. And these next 5 picks that I'm going to make, so we could draft between like 9, excuse me, 9 and 11 mons, and I was going for all 11 because I needed to get a ton of rolls done, and I knew there was a lot of mons that could be good, that weren't very expensive, that I could get my hands on. Now I'm hoping the graphics have the prices on the side because I do not remember what they are. So going into round 7, I saw this next mon as extremely imperative to everything I needed to cover. This is a mon that covered so many grounds on my team that I would have been a little crushed if I didn't get it, and I was pretty confident after I picked up Drapion that I was going to be able to get it, and that is none other than Miltank. Now Miltank is an absolutely wonderful mon in the League format. It completely outshines its performance in the tiers, and that's because it's super duper versatile defensively and offensively. So why is this thing so good? If you don't know, it's got 3 great abilities in Thick Fat, Scrappy, and Sap Zipper. It can lay up Stealth Rocks. It essentially gives me a Grass immunity. It gives me a Fire Switch in and Ice Switch in. It'd be cool if it got Rapid Spin so it couldn't get spin blocked. Scrappy I've found use for in League matches before, and it's a mon I played around with a little bit in other leagues between this season and the last NPL season. It's always a mon that I've wanted to try out, but it's a mon that I go for late and it always gets sniped. But this thing added some very, very important things. First and foremost, I wanted another stealth rocker because Miltank is a wonderful stealth rocker. It's super good. It gives me a bulky mon, it gives me an ice resist, it gives me a potential grass resist, it gives me a ghost switch in, which is huge given that I have 2 psychic types on my team and no resist aside from that. Oh wait, no, I have Drapion, just kidding. Another reason why I really wanted Drapion. But this thing just offers a lot. Miltank is a really, really nice mon. It's probably one of the best value picks in the League format. And just having that mon that can lay up rocks reliably, be a fat thing, be potentially offensively threatening. If you've seen Zazo use it, you know what's up. So we'll probably see a few spicy Miltank sets. It gives me a Heal Beller, which is really cool, along with Celebi and Guard both learn Heal Bell as well. So I have some Cleric, which is really nice for me. And this is just it's just a really nice mon. It has a lot of moves. It has a lot of things it can do, and I'm definitely excited to give it a whirl. And it was just another good thing to add to my bulk because it just covered up so many of the weaknesses that I had created with my first 5 picks or so. So going into round 8, I believe, yeah, I wanted my water type, and from the very beginning there was really only one water type that I wanted, something that would patch up a lot of holes on my team. I was really hoping to get this mon along with Gliscor because that makes a pretty sick defensive core, and that is another mon that I absolutely adore from the GPC, and that is Gastrodon. Now, you guys know how much I love Gastrodon. I'm a big promoter of this thing, and it's such a good defensive water type for what it is. It gives me Water Ground, so it gives me an electric immunity. It has Storm Drains, so it's immune to water, which is really nice. So I have a good Scald switch in, and along with Celebi, which has Natural Cure, so I can't get status. So I have 2 things. Well, I have Celebi, which deters status. I've got Heal Bellers, and I've got something that deters Scald spam, so that's very, very nice for me. And I really like Gastrodon. It's such a nice mon. It takes hits really, really well. it's so nice to be able to EV something intricately and have it take 2 hits from like 5 different mons on someone's team that you EV'd specifically for. It has a lot of cool options for coverage and setup. I really like Curse Gastrodon. It can do some other interesting stuff, and overall it fit the team very, very well. It gives me a super solid electric immunity, and now it puts a strain on people's building, because I've got this ground type that's quad weak to grass, and I have this flying type and Dragonite that's quad weak to ice. So if you have to slap a hidden power on there and try and hit one or the other, then one of the other is probably going to wall. So I have puts a little question in the air whether they're going to run the HP grass or the HP ice. Obviously they could have grass or ice coverage, but Gastrodon doesn't really care about ice coverage all that much unless it's a very strong physical hit or very, very strong special hit. Looking at like whatever, doesn't matter. But Gastrodon Gastrodon's nice. I'm happy to have Gastrodon on the team. It's going to be something that's a very solid backbone to the team. It works well with Miltanks with that Sap Sipper. And it goes well with Celebi as well. I really like Celebi plus Gastrodon as a defensive core, since they cover their weaknesses really well. Gastrodon just drinks ghost type hits and dark type hits easily, and overall I just really like the defensive aspect of it. And going into round 9, these last 3 picks were very, very important. So even though I was running low on points, these 3 picks were not throwaways. Each and every one of them had a purpose, and I really wanted to get all 3 of them, because none of them had a replacement. Nothing really did the same roles that I wanted them to do. So going into my next pick, I knew I wanted to get my fire type, and this is a mon that fell from heaven in Gen 6, and you know exactly what I'm talking about, and that's Talonflame. Now I really like Talonflame still. It's still a very solid mon. 126 base speed is a godsend for my team since it's very slow, so I have something that can outspeed a fair bit of people's teams. Like those 115s would definitely give me trouble in the 110s and whatnot. Talonflame is just really, really nice mon. I think it's a pretty solid value pick. 10 points, possibly too expensive for it, but I definitely think it's going to be worth it. And it has a lot of tools it can do. Its stats aren't impressive, but its speed helps it be an annoying mon, and its strong dual stab makes it a very, very offensive, spooky thing, even though its attack stat is pretty weak. Like 120 base attack, or as Brave Bird and Flare Blitz, which are both 120 base, which definitely mitigates the fact that its attack stat is so low. And I didn't draft this thing to be a breaker. I have plenty of those. This thing is a great supportive mon. It pairs up really well with everything else on my team, and the fact that I had Zapdos as a good defogger made me more comfortable with it, especially since, spoilers, the last 2 mons I pick are hazard removers, and solid ones at that, in my opinion, so I definitely felt comfortable with it. This completes my Fire, Water, Grass core of Celebi, Gastrodon, and Talonflame. Obviously, all of them have a 4x weakness, which is a little sketchy. However, I think it'll work out. If it doesn't, then screw me, I learned my lesson, but this thing it's nice. I really like Talonflame. It was definitely the best fire type left available, and it was something that I was kind of eyeing from the beginning. I think it synergizes really well with the team that I have already, definitely with Lucario and Mega Guard and Zapdos, so I definitely think this is going to be a good plug and play mon. It's going to help me out a lot. It gives me just a whole lot of tools and team support, as well as a pretty solid offensive threat, so that it's going to help the team out. Like, I'm kind of out of it right now, if you couldn't tell, so my analysis isn't spot on, but it's got a lot going for it, and I really like what it can do. And it's a mon that I played around with a little bit in Gen 7, and I really enjoyed its capabilities, and I definitely think it has a lot going for it, even if Gale Wings is pretty useless at this point, so unless you're really anal about keeping rocks off the field and keeping this thing at 100%. But nonetheless, it's a very good mon, and I definitely think it's going to help the team out. So, going into the last picks, some things to look at. My hazard removal, I have 1 thing that gets rid of those. My stealth rockers, I have 2 of those. I want more. And I just have some weaknesses and some things that I wanted to patch up. And I really want another ground type, preferably one that was weaker to ice so that I could further the conundrum between do I run HP ice or do I run HP grass. Obviously, it gives me a little more trouble with some things, but especially if they have just a lot of coverage. But regardless, with our round 10 pick, we picked up Gligar. Now, obviously this is no Gliscor. I like Gliscor a lot more, but Gligar's a really interesting mon. It's a very, very bulky mon, which I really like. This, along with mons like Miltank, this thing just sits and eats hits. Obviously, it's weak to ice and it can be knocked off, but this thing just offered so many rolls to my team that I really didn't want to pass it up. It gives me another ground type, so Volt Switch spam is a little less scary against me, which is very good, especially since I have some birds flapping around. This is my 4th flying type, funnily enough, but I'm really not worried about the rock's weakness because this gives me a defogger, which is pretty darn reliable, even though Zapdos is more so. This thing is nice for getting rid of rocks. It can also lay off the rocks. It has some good team utility options. Gives me another baton passer, which is nice. It gives me another source of momentum with U-turn along with Talonflame and Zapdos and Celebi. And it's just a mon that can do a whole lot, and because it has access to things like Swords Dance and Taunt, it's not a passive defensive mon, which is always what I'm all about. I don't like passivity, and this thing definitely is good for not being passive. Yeah, it gives me another thing that can like click knockoff, which is really handy because that's always a good move to have in the back. And it's got priority and quick attack, woo. But yeah, this thing, it's nice. It covers some things that I was a little scared of, and it's just kind of a meat shield for my team. Obviously, it can be prepped around. It's not the greatest mon, but I definitely like it. I think it's honestly kind of underrated. I think people hate on it a lot, and we'll see if that, whether my expectation lives up throughout the season. But I think this is a pretty nifty mon, and it definitely added some roles to my team that I was lacking in. So definitely adding that 3rd rocker helps me. And lastly, we're going to another mon that I really, really like that doesn't get in the spotlight much and adds a lot of really handy things to my team. Now, this is a mon that I had in the NPL Minors, and I adore this thing. It's so underrated, it's so cool, it's such a solid mon, it does a whole lot of things for what it is and for how much it's worth. And for my last pick, I picked up Kabutops. Now, Kabutops adds a whole lot to this team that I was lacking, or words, I can't think right now. But Kabutops is nice for a whole lot of reasons. It gives me a rapid spinner, which is really, really nice. It gives me a strong offensive mon. Again, Stone Edge is such a nice, Stab Stone Edge is a great move to spam. It has good offensive coverage, which is really helpful. It has a strong priority in Stab Aqua Jet coming off base 115 attack, which is solid. It gives me the potential threat for like Manual Rain, which is definitely a spooky thing. I really think Kabutops is a super solid mon. It gives me another rocker. It gives me a 3rd hazard remover, which is really, really nice to try and help take the pressure off stuff like Zapdos so it can do cooler stuff. And it gives me just a cool mon. A lot of people probably don't like Kabutops, but I find in a lot of matchups is like, hey, this guy doesn't really have Kabutops switch-ins. Let's run it with a Life Orb or a Choice Band and get some really nice 2-hit KOs spamming Stone Edge and Waterfall and Aqua Jet and coverage. Yay. This thing, it's a super good mon for what it's worth. For 6 points, I would take this thing all day. Kabutops is a mon at some point, which is at some point on like every single draft plan I ever make, just because it's got such a solid roll compression. And it's something that's, I think, is going to help me out through the season. I think it's going to be a really good team player for me. And it just kind of wraps up the draft pretty well. It gives me another grass weakness, but Kabutops doesn't take hits anyway, so I don't really care about that. It gives me a flying resist, though, which is pretty nice, along with the Zapdos, and essentially Gligar is a flying resist since it's so fat. And what else is there to say? This thing, I really like Kabutops. I think it's going to be a helpful mon for this team. Seb's around with semi-rain team, so we can threaten him with Swift Swim back, you know. And what else is there to say? I really think this draft is pretty fun. It's definitely a little risky since there's so many 4x weaknesses on it. However, I definitely like the idea of it. I like my core mons, and I like the support that everything else does to it. And it's also really colorful, which is nice. I don't like non-colorful teams, so that's a nice thing. It is a very nice thing. I've got a good amount of removal. I have a good amount of stealth rockers. I can lay up hazards. Unfortunately, I don't have spikes, which I kind of would have liked, but I just couldn't fit it on anything. And we have a Mega Gardevoir, and a Lucario, and a Dragonite, which are all very spooky with pretty solid defensive pivot kind of mons to help back those up. So I definitely think it's going to be an interesting season. I'm going to have some fun building with this team, and hopefully you guys will enjoy watching me play with it, and hopefully we can cop some W's and do well in this league, and definitely make up for the shit show that went down last season. So that's it. Hope you all enjoyed. I know this has been a little clunky. I'm still kind of out of it since I just got home from vacation, but I'm gonna have fun with this team. Hope you all have fun watching it. Maybe learn a thing or two about mons, and I'll see y'all later. Bye.